If it wasn't, then off.
Because as soon as it had set, that was it. Get the shuttering off, the formwork panels, and strip them off and start, remove them and extend again onto the next wall.
This one blew, that particular unit. It goes with an almighty crack and the whole lot come. I don't think all the concrete went out of it, but the thing shuttered and it landing at the side, and a couple of the men fell off it or got knocked off it because it was being poured too quickly. It was dangerous. Not all the time, but at times it was dangerous.
We had the underpass as well down, which went from the swimming baths down to Astley's underground. When you're working in it, you had to watch for the water, because if the water came up, you had to run for it to get out. You know, there was no warning system or nothing like that.
We had a crane come down on me there, because they just inspected the crane that weekend. They put the wrong ropes into it. So when we was concreting, down she come.
The JCB had hit a 3,000 volt electric cable. And it was jumping up and the sparks were going from it, and all the poor people that were shopping along there were running away, frightened them to death.
I remember working over the winter months on top of the flyover. There was no side panels or anything on it. It was just like being halfway up a mountain, I think. Not that it was that high, but that is one moment, the coldest I've ever been in my life, and I still remember it to this day.
I think it was still a 54-hour working week. We worked 9 hours a day for 5 days, and we worked till 4 o'clock on a Saturday.
You were paid to do a job, you did it, and that was it. Got the wages at the end of the week.
Undoubtedly, it would have been very difficult to have built the ring road without being able to rely on quite large numbers of workmen from Ireland. They were very good. They were very adaptable, very hard working, expected to work long hours and save up money to send home.
Well, all the different nationalities that worked on the job there, you know, there were English, Irish, Scottish, West
Jamaican,
Indians,
West
Sikhs
Indies.
and everything. And, you know, a lot of these people came to work and live in the city.
The city engineer, Nathaniel Raymond, was very ambitious in terms of technical innovation, and he wanted to have heated ramps so that during a period of frost and snow the roads would be actually heated.
As far as I know, the only heating elements are the bottom of Bradford Road, in the 4 slip roads there, because I'll put them in. I don't know whether they still work now, but it was only experimental then.
At the time, it was the first use of some very, use the word, exotic concrete beams. They're called pre-stressed box girder beams. They were made in Lincolnshire and brought all the way to Coventry on lorries, about 150 feet long.
These records of these beams arriving and being placed on the beam shelves had to be kept because they wanted to know how long they'd been in transit and what time they arrived and when they were lifted on. 8:45, difficulty again in positioning the beam. Beam lowered onto the column and then raised, pulling off epoxy mortar.
I would think that all these measures that were taken with regard to quality control has proved the point today. It's still operating exactly as it did when it opened. So all congratulations, I think, to these men for doing all those checks and making sure that
Everything was done right.
Correct standards.
Essential,
Yes.
yeah, essential.
Good job done.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a good job. Yes.
It was very nice. The Lord Mayor was very good, and we had Mr. Raymond there, and we had a lovely lunch. And then they did do a tour of the ring road in a bus. It wasn't really to show ourselves off to the public of Coventry, because we'd only built a road, we hadn't won a football match.
I have friends from a different town who come down, and they're always confused, because it's okay for people who live here but not visitors.
For anybody coming to Coventry, I mean, I'll be pointing to actually to say, please avoid the ring road at all costs. But then to actually give them an alternate route is quite difficult.
It's a very successful road system, so it means that there is a lack of traffic jams in certain places at times.
I sometimes think that people that come in onto the ring road don't give the ones that's going along much chance.
I think the biggest problem is where people dither when they're coming onto the ring road, and I think that causes more accidents and confusion.
It gives a really bad view of Coventry, so people from outside Coventry view it as something that Coventry is a concrete jungle.
It performs brilliantly. Coventry hasn't got a traffic problem. It's actually got a very good accident record, which means very, very few accidents on the ring road, a bit like a motorway. It's probably the safest road in Coventry.
Over the last 3 years, there's been an average of around 30 crashes, and that's resulted in about 40 casualties. I can see that visitors to the city might find it a little bit daunting, getting on and off the ring road in particular, but generally I think it's really well designed. And I think if it's used properly, it's a good, safe way of moving a lot of vehicles around the city centre. I think the major improvement we can do isn't something physically, but it's educating drivers to use the ring road properly.
In the 60s and the 70s, it was all done for the car. What's really changed, though, is I suppose the idea that the pedestrians now expect a better environment. And therefore, if you're a pedestrian and you have to get across the ring road, in other words, from outside the city centre into the city, you have to go down through subways or over bridges. And that's not a very pleasant thing to do. Society's changed since 1975, and people are sometimes quite fearful about going into subways.
And I took a shortcut through a subway, but it was a subway that I used twice every day. Somebody called out to me, and he hurried after me. And he caught me in the corner, said, well, what have you got in your pockets? And so I knew what was happening then. And as soon as I started to shout out, they started hitting me.
In the last 3 years, there's only been 3 recorded crimes in a subway. Unfortunately, those crimes are impactive crimes, like a mugging, a rape possibly, or worst case scenario, a murder. Because they are press-worthy events, the press do make them frontline headlines, and it does send probably a wrong message of what's actually happening in Coventry.
I spent more and more time trying to deal with pedestrians by ways other than subways. We really have kept them to an absolute minimum. In fact, there are at least 2 in the central area. We built, we filled in afterwards.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think that subways are dangerous when there's not buskers in them. There was a horrific tragedy in the Spon End subway recently, and I don't think there was buskers going down at that time. And I think when you've got buskers down there, it creates a good atmosphere. You know, it cheers people up, or it gives them a focus. Even if they're saying, "Oh, you're rubbish," they're not mogging people. There's a focus in there, you know, for them.
What we're finding now is that our city centre is growing at such a rate, and it's restricted by what's often known as the concrete collar. That's often the nickname for the ring road.
We designed the inner ring road on the basis of a 20-year design. So we designed peak flows for 1981, which is now, 25 years later. But nevertheless, it still works extremely well, considering that it's now 25 years beyond the design period.
There was very few cars compared with today, and they were much slower as well, and smaller. So I think you could say that it's remarkable that the ring road is still serving Coventry so well, despite the fact there's many times the volume of traffic
I think the more the council's been thinking about it recently, we've been regarding the ring road as an asset, a real plus for the city centre, because we've got a huge amount of development planned in the city centre in the next 10 years, and therefore by keeping it we've actually got the ability to bring more cars in to actually service these new developments. So if we didn't have the ring road, planning for these new major schemes like IKEA would have been an absolute nightmare, and almost certainly we probably couldn't have had it in the city centre.
That is the great advantage of a ring road. It's flexible and adjusts and is relevant to any particular traffic movement.
I don't think they'll ever demolish it. It'd take too much demolishing now.
The bit I worked on is still standing there,
Still standing. Nothing's gone wrong with it.
Yeah, I would have thought, provided the city authorities continue to maintain the road, there's no reason why it shouldn't go on indefinitely.